call the meeting to order. Welcome to the regular board meeting of the Veterinary Irrigation District Board of Directors, July 27th, 2022. If you'll all join me in the salute flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Division 1. Here. Division 2.
Here.
Division 3. Here. Division 4. Here. Division 5.
Here. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll take public comment for any item that's not on today's agenda. If you'd like to comment on items pertinent to NID, start on your phone or come to the podium at this time. Anybody like to speak to items not on today's agenda? All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. I have a motion for the consent agenda. Or would somebody like to pull an item? Director Paul.
I'd like to pull item 3E.
3E. Okay.
And I'd like to pull 3C, please.
3C.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else?
Mr. President, I'll move the balance of the consent agenda, lacking items 3C and 3E. No, wait, was that right, Laura?
Yes.
3C and 3E. And I'd move for adoption of the balance.
Second. Second. Any member of the public like to comment on the consent agenda at this time? Start on your phone, come to the podium. All right, Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Division 4. Aye. Division 1.
Aye.
Division 5.
Yes.
Division 3. Aye. Division 2.
All right, thank you. Okay, item 3C, Board Director Peters.
Okay. My question on this one, so we added this time, since the last time we had this item, the statements which have been deemed appropriate for settlement. And so I'm wondering what the significance of that, which has been deemed appropriate for settlement for both of them, and which has been rejected and deemed not appropriate for settlement. What does that mean? Why is that an interest there?
Oh, well, that's just really a reference to the fact that when district staff would identify a claim as, okay, indeed, NID was responsible for this action. There was a damage to a property. There was something that happened. There was a claim. NID staff would determine, okay, yeah, that was true and factual, and so we will deem that as appropriate for settlement.
Okay.
That's what that means.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's fair enough, I guess. And then, so perhaps there could be another sentence added in here that says if claimant disagrees with what the district deems, they have the right to petition the board or petition to, since that's not the final word.
So that's in statute. We talked about that last time. Maybe Dustin can reference, but that's in statute, that when they get a letter of rejection, it states clearly that they have the opportunity to seek counsel and come to the district with, basically, they file a small claims court suit.
So it has to go to court before, it has to go to court before it can.
Usually, yeah.
Small claims, though,
Yeah.
because it's under 10.
So also keep in mind, we were talking about claims that are settled. And claims that are settled, they're submitting a form that says, okay, here's the reasons why you injured me, and here's the dollar amount of my injury. And if staff confirms that, yeah, we as a district did something wrong, there's already an amount there and the basis of the amount. So kind of tying back to this language, which have been deemed appropriate for settlement, we're paying what the claimant believes they're owed. And we've independently confirmed that, yes, that's fair and just compensation.
Okay, and so if we deem it's not, so they have to go to court before it ever come to the board.
If we rejected it.
If there's a rejection, depending on the threshold of the claim, it may come to you for consideration, or it may be rejected under this policy by staff. But under either scenario, the law provides for a process where they can go to Superior Court, and they could seek review.
Mhm.
Yes, it's called the Tort Claims Act.
And there's information referenced when they receive that rejection letter
Is there? Okay.
that says that they should contact the attorney if they,
Maybe have legal fees rather than being able to try it.
we're not giving them the direction to go.
The form is actually in statute. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not language we created. It's language that's in the Tort Claims Act. We're obligated to provide it to them. So if there's bold letters that say notice, I think it's, about
Mhm.
20 font. So.
Yeah, because I just saw that this was added in the last discussion on it. So, okay, I move to approve 3C.
Moved and seconded to approve item 3C on the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on this item? Start on your phone or come to the podium at this time. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Division 4,
Aye.
Division 1,
Yes.
Division 5,
Yes.
Division 3. Aye. Division 2.
Aye. Okay, Director Hull, item 3E.
Key, and I was wondering what the short ballpark cost is for the refurbishment of the Chicago. I mean, I know you don't know precisely, but kind of what's the ballpark?
It's gonna, so in round numbers, and we're still working that through, and the supply chain has, quite frankly, turned all the cost numbers up on their head, but it's gonna be in the neighborhood of 16 million, to refurbish the powerhouse, is our hope. Coming out of phase 1 here, we'll have that class 4 estimate, which will really help us hone in on that, but that's best bet for now.
And then presumably, if we upsize the plant, then the cost will go up quite a bit more.
No, sometimes there are, minor efficiencies that you can pick up along the way. You can, as the runner is 50 years old, and it's so, there are modeling techniques that they can use now to build a more efficient runner. And so that may allow us to upgrade. Things have just become more efficient. And so it's possible that it would be not too expensive to get a little bit more power out of it, but we just don't know that. Any sort of upgrade to the civil infrastructure, the canal, the dams, or anything like that won't pencil out. So it's more electrical and mechanical upgrades that we can make for efficiency that might help.
Okay, so that's very helpful context. So when I read this item, my reaction was, wow, have we ever heard about this potential of as part of, because we knew Chicago Park needed to have the generator, but I didn't have an understanding that you were thinking about upsizing as part of that, and that's clearly part of this scope of work. So was that issue brought to the board as kind of the scope of this work, this project?
So we didn't explicitly talk about the upsize. It's just kind of standard practice as what you do. If you're going to go through and mechanically overhaul it, if you're going to electrically overhaul it, if you're going to upgrade these key components, it's just something you do as a routine matter of the project. And we're not talking a significant upgrade in my mind, where we may get a megawatt, maybe 2 megawatts out of it because of efficiency. This is not going to go from a 40 megawatt plant to an 80 megawatt plant overnight. And it's minimal at best is my take on it.
Okay.
So.
And Kean, that would be at the discretion of the district.
Absolutely. And when we get this report, we'll come back to the board, and then if we decide to upgrade it, it's something that you will just review and decide at that point. So.
That's very helpful context, Kean, thank you. So I think that really allays my concerns. I didn't know we're talking small, and what you're describing is really strategic investment that could pay off and not recasting.
No, like I said, the civil stuff, it won't pencil out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I'm sure we're all in.
Any sort of civil upgrades that have to be done to the canal, the penstock, any upsizing of any of that, it won't pencil out. I'm confident of that, so.
So, I'm just gonna make my ongoing statement about wanting to see a comprehensive analysis of our hydro operation. Has nothing to do with the excellence with which you run that organization. It's really about the way this project is one of many within the context of hydro, and we've been asking for years now to have that analysis done, and it just seems like it's always mañana, and then another big project like this one comes to the fore, and we're making decisions out of context without understanding the big scope of what the issues are in hydro, and to be honest, it's increasingly frustrating to not see, okay, the study, the analysis of hydro is going to start X time and be done by approximately X time. It's very aggravating to me as a board member to have to keep bringing this up and not feel like, okay, when is it happening? And then to have, what is going to end up costing the district $16 million without the context of where are we going with hydro? So I just
Okay,
say
I'll take that for action.
Good luck with that.
Well, I think that that's part of our board responsibility
We will
to say,
Well, Karen, I support that because I have been asking for a comprehensive, really cost-benefit analysis of hydro, especially when you overlay the FERC requirements, and the cost that will be, and for many years, and I know Laura has too, Director Peters, and again, this isn't reflection on you. It's just something that as a board we've asked for because it's very important for us to understand what we receive versus what it costs to get that, and then you overlay FERC and, my business head says it's probably not worthy of spending a whole lot of money. However, I can't substitute my judgment, so it'd be really nice to see actual analysis of that. And I sort of thought you embarked on that, I don't know, a year or two ago, and then, COVID happened, and I heard, so.
So my understanding is that we're waiting for the financials to get kind of tied up a bit better so we understand them better, before we can do that. I'm not.
So we don't understand at this point what we're spending?
Okay, we are.
No.
We're off
No.
it out there, if we can stay.
I think we'll definitely take the points of the board in perspective and make sure that the general manager also is aware of this.
thank you.
Move that forward.
Appreciate that,
Yes.
thank you.
Director Johansson?
Thank you. 2 points. So this is just to have an engineering firm kind of frame in what those costs will be and the analysis of the project. Just off your head, again, ballpark, projected revenues for the life of this project?
So the Powerhouse makes approximately $10 million a year, is the revenue out of Chicago Park.
This has a 50-year
No.
term on this particular.
So a rewind is good for about 30 years. You need to rewind them about every 30 years or so.
Okay.
So
We're looking about $300 million.
plus or minus, we'll see. I obviously can't predict what the future of power prices will be, but, yeah,
And that's net, not gross, right? Or is that gross?
that's gross.
That's
10
gross.
million just from Chicago Park, or is that?
Chicago Park alone,
No, just Chicago Park.
Chicago
Well,
Park
I
alone.
know it's 23 million, but then you have to deduct the expense a bunch of times, that's the.
Gross,
Yeah.
he's referring to gross,
Gross revenue out of.
not net per the particular facility.
Okay, so I think that is.
That's-
second
that-
question?
No, the question now is gross, because I think we're heading direction to get kind of a net idea, an idea of what the
Yeah.
net would be.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
we're gonna get that until we approve this engineering contract, so that we get an idea what the costs are. We have a basic idea of what the revenues, gross revenues are, then we can, when the accounting gets better, the financials, then we can hone into the actual expenses, and then we'll have a better idea what net is.
Well,
But to do that now is kind of,
well, there's 2 things I'm hearing, right? One is just the approval of this contract. This award, the item on the table is just to award the contract that gives us an idea of what the overall cost of upgrading the facility is gonna be.
correct.
The second item that Director Hull brought forth is an overall comprehensive look at the status and the current and future obligations of the hydroelectric department and what its costs and benefit are to the district in the longer term.
Right.
Sort of looking backwards a few years and then looking forward without the benefit of knowing what power costs are gonna be in the future, looking at the risks of that. We spoke a little about that in the risk analysis of the plan for water. We'll be talking about, I assume you'll be talking about this in the plan for water process once we start the strategic planning next month. So, to come, I will definitely be moving this towards and talking with the general manager about this, both Kian and I, and we'll see where we are and what we can bring forth.
Thank you.
Peters.
I have some questions. In 2021, we commissioned a third-party team to perform a high-level condition. Did the board see that?
No, it was not a particularly expensive study. Or you mean to review and approve it, or did you see the results of it?
To get a copy of the report, so we understand the background for this $200,000 contract.
No, I don't believe so.
It would have been helpful just to provide context.
I'll have to look at some of that. I don't know, it's got a lot of DEII, critical energy infrastructure information that is typically not public information, so I don't know how to do that. What's that?
There's a security.
There's a security issue.
We can look into that.
Yeah, and I don't know.
I did have the same kind of reaction of seeing, it would have been nice to have a little more context.
Okay.
And so it could have been a closed item discussion if we had these results and you didn't want to put them in a public forum, that's fine. But anyway, that's fine.
Because we continue to approve pretty high dollar expenses for hydro. We've added 5 supervising positions that had 0 budgetary impact, that we were told. So we don't know when those seats are filled and they're performing at the highest levels. We don't know what that budgetary impact is, and so we just keep getting things piecemeal. From my perspective, is that, oh, here's this, don't look at anything else, this is all we're looking at today. Well, it all fits into a bigger picture that we're supposed to be trying to understand, and it's not at all clear to me.
Well, I think we're back to the question that Director Hall raised at the beginning, which is this secondary overview and review of all hydroelectric activities, its cost benefit to the district overall, which includes that. We have brought forth what you're referring to as the South Yuba Canal activities, where there's a lot of different pieces to every department. And what I'm hearing is a holistic review and look back on hydroelectric. And we just need to strategize and figure out how to bring that forth to the district and to the board in a logical and thoughtful way.
Sorry.
And we do have a process to bring things forward, as you follow.
Yeah. Do you have a motion?
I need a motion, please.
Karen, one.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve item 3.
Second.
Any member of the public like to comment on this item, 3E on the consent agenda? Start on your phone or come to the podium. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Division 4,
I'm going to abstain because I don't know that I have enough information to know that this is while at this point.
Division 1,
I'm going to vote to support this because I support Keenan's work, and I trust that we wouldn't have been brought this had this not been necessary. However, we've been asking, as we've all said, for a comprehensive analysis, and we really want that to be done. So my vote is yes.
Division 5,
Yes, because this is the first step to getting those figures.
Mm-hmm.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 2.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
General order.
Oh, boy, I feel like the pressure's on. It's like the only general item today. So, let me turn this video on so everyone can see my ugly mug. Okay, well, thank you for coming in for this item. I think we had some very time-sensitive items in the consent agenda, so that's why there's not a whole bunch of things in the general, but not to minimize the importance of what we're doing in operations, so this is a good opportunity to walk through, so I appreciate that opportunity. And again, I'm Chip Close, Water Operations Manager. Today, we're gonna go through what we've been up to for the last few months in operations, and you can see there on the opening slide, we're gonna go through them in alphabetical order. And within operations, we have customer service, electrical, distribution, treatment, and water resources.
Close to.
Oh, yeah, sometimes I wonder how I made it through grade school. Okay. So customer service, we'll start off with cashiering. And this is Kim and Melissa up in the front of the building here. So when you walk in our front door, they are the face of NID that you see when you walk in. And they are very good and courteous and very professional. And we really appreciate their work. Recently, though, they have been expanding their duties. So Recreation Department has been handling cash for many, many years, and there's been some concerns there. So now the cash comes in, and our cashiering team is counting the cash and verifying it, and then helping with the deposits. So pretty cool there. They've expanded their duties to cover that. They've also been working through heavy lobby demands. So COVID is kind of behind us, and people are now getting back into the office to make payments. And believe it or not, our agricultural customers, our irrigation water customers really do appreciate coming into the office to make those payments. A lot of times they're doing it with cash. It's a high volume, high amount. So they're more comfortable just coming in and making those payments. So they support that, and we appreciate that. Additionally, we're working through a Community Plus upgrade. This is related to the Penimation and that changeover. And so many of the things they're doing twice. Once in the old system, once in the new system, to make sure it works. So the workload's been increased. So thanks to them for their efforts. Continuing in customer service, but switching to billing and dispatch. Again, very busy. This team has fielded over 16,866 calls since January. So that's about an average of 135 calls per day. We do try to track what the call reason is. And the number one reason is billing, questions about billing, issues of that nature. Number two is dispatch. This is when people call in and they see a leak, or their irrigation box is plugged, or there's canal issues. Those get dispatched out, so we handle those calls there as well. Yeah?
How many staff are handling that one?
Okay. Yeah, great question. So we've got our two dispatchers, we have Megan and Christy, and then we have our customer service reps in Tricia and Barbara, so 4. So it's a heavy load, and then you fold in vacations and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they manage it tightly, and then Aurora helps as the manager or the supervisor as well. The highest number of calls in any given day is about 170. That's kind of the record, so pretty impressive. Add to that they are also routing and distributing calls to other departments. So many times when people call in, they just hit the customer service button. They don't really know what they need or where they need to go, so they also distribute those calls out. And then on top of those calls, they all are also responding to emails. They have covered 1,795 emails since January. And the email is actually picking up. People are now leaning more and more towards email for communication, which I kind of appreciate because you can handle it as it comes in and respond when it's more convenient if you're on the phone. But those kind of communications are picking up. They are a little more time consuming than a simple answer on the phone, but regardless, I get where people are using tech these days, and it's good. And then this group is also doing the same validation process for the Penimation switchover, essentially doing things twice just to make sure that the old system has it, the new system has it, and it's functional. And it's progressing slowly, but we're working on it. Last but not least, the call volume is high, partially because of drought too. I don't want to belittle that.
Can I,
Yeah.
move on, because this is still in the billing cash, in the accounting piece of this. So when I'm out in the world and talking to folks, one of the chief complaints, and I'm sure you have heard, is why do we charge this money on top of for electronic billing? You know?
Yes.
right?
Great
And I
question.
remember some years ago when we instituted this, there was discussion about whatever it is, 5%.
It's actually just a flat fee of $3.75, $3.75.
Yeah, I know, and it doesn't seem like very much, but boy, that really bugs people because they say, well, you're not having to handle it, you're not having to send out postage, you're not having to, handle all this paper. Clearly, this is a savings to the district. Why are we paying this $3.75 or whatever?
Yeah.
And, I don't know if this is something, it seemed like it was gonna be in the works for us to be able to find a different vendor, perhaps? And can you just comment about that a little bit?
Sure. So the fee is because we are using a third party to do the credit card payments for us. They provide all the security and protection for your credit card. And they charge a fee for it. Many of the other businesses and agencies also use these same services. They kind of hide the fee into just their normal billing process and fees. We had concerns that that doesn't follow the Prop 218, and we wanted to ensure that anybody using the process we're the only ones paying for it. In other words, if you're not using a credit card payment, you're just paying with cash or whatever, you're not subject to paying for somebody else's credit card payment. So we separated those fees out and then put it forth that way. But obviously that got a lot of people concerned, because if you look at other agencies, PCWA for one, they just fold it into their rate.
Is that what they do? They just
Yeah.
fold it in?
Yeah. So,
That's an interesting point, though, because, we do have savings, as you reflect.
Yeah.
I think they are more than $3.75.
Well, that's the argument that gets made to me out in the customer world, is why are you doing this?
Yeah.
We know that what your savings has to be, or intuitively, they feel like the savings has to be far greater than the $3.75.
Yeah.
Why are they charged that? And while it is a small amount, it's annoying for folks, because they can pay every other bill in the world online without maybe it's seeing the fee. Maybe that is what I'm hearing.
that's really what it's about. And I think we'll have an opportunity when we do our next rate setting process to deal with this issue.
I think that would be good to make sure we include this issue, because I actually have a utility where they discount the bill when you
Yes.
pay online.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
So I think we can stand more comfortably with defending ourselves against the 218 issue, and really think about what are the savings, because the more people we can migrate to this, the better. And we don't want to disincentivize people's actions based on $3.75.
I know, it seems, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So, but folks, it really does rub them the wrong way.
Yeah, I get it, and it's funny, we were trying to do the right thing,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, it came across, it comes back to us as a negative, but it really is a positive. We're protecting their credit card information, we're using a third
Yeah.
party to help us through this. The cost for us to provide the security to protect that credit card information would be astronomical. Or if there was a breach in our system and they got everybody's credit card information, that would be on NID. By using this third party vendor, all the protections and liabilities are on them. So there is savings in that.
It seems like a sound thing that has taken place.
Right.
It's just, how do we deal with that $3.75?
Yeah.
So I like the fact that we can look at that in the rate setting.
Yeah.
We could make a case that we're saving $3.75 by going to this system.
Exactly.
Right, that's my point, and that's why I'm saying I think we address it at the next rate setting process as potentially an overall savings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's gonna save us a lot of money down the road.
Right.
Agreed.
And it's environmentally much more responsible. We're not
In every way,
killing
yeah.
trees.
Yeah, on a side note though, you can do non-mailed, so electronic billings, and not pay the $3.75 for that, just so our customers are aware.
So it hits their checking account. or-
So the only way you get charged $3.75 is if you're actually making the payment via credit card. If you just want to get electronic billings, that's free.
Chip, is the district
Receive
paying,
it, not pay it.
Correct, yes.
Chip, is the district paying money to that third-party service?
Over and above the
Yeah, we are.
No, thanks for bringing that up. The $3.75 is how that third party gets their payment. It's not through NID.
So in other words, NID doesn't pay a dime for the third-party service. It has all the protections and security efforts for the customers who want to pay via card. That cost is not built into our 218 process, because it doesn't cover all of that fee is not charged to every single customer. Some bring it in cash, some send a check. So there's a nuance there that we'd have to look at in the 218, and we should.
What if they use
Right
a
now.
debit card? Would that be the same as
It's
a
the
credit
same.
card?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, so.
Do we know what that 375 is as a percentage of the average bill?
No, we don't. And basically, I think it's $375 per $1,000. And if you have to make a payment that's more than that, you might have to make two $375, $3.75.
Oh, I see, so it's not each monthly payment they get charged
It's-
375.
So for instance, if you're an agricultural or irrigation water customer and you have a $2,000 bill, you're gonna have to pay $375 twice, because the cap's $1,000.
I see.
We're gonna work with Paymentus and potentially renegotiate the contract in the future, but we have been told that a flat percentage rate is not allowed for governmental agencies. I find that hard to believe, and I'm eager to negotiate with them again. I recently paid my DMV fees, and they do a percentage. So there must be a loophole somewhere, so we're gonna work on that.
Thank you for having a little sidestep
Yeah,
there.
no problem. It's a good question. Okay, continuing on in customer service, we have our conservation and field technicians. So essentially, this is our water efficiency technician, Casey, and then our field technicians, this is our meter readers and conservationists, this is Fallon and Dave. So they, the field technicians are our meter readers, but we also use them as our conservation folks, because there are eyes and ears out in the system. They're always driving around, doing the meter reads, looking for leaks and doing that kind of thing. Also, when we get high usage reports, that we rely on them to go out and check these facilities, mainly on the treated water side. So that's why I fold them into this group. They've been very busy with the current drought conditions. Many of you, if you have an NID account, received a little postcard from us reminding you that we're in drought and asking you to conserve. And we mailed those to everybody, treated and irrigation water. So that was great. I think it brought the awareness up, but it led to a high number of calls, which is a good thing. That we can encourage people to cut back, and we've had quite a few of those. Yeah.
On the meter read,
Yeah.
is it, are all of the meters read, or are some automated, and is there any ability to automate that process?
Yeah, I was gonna mention that at the end. So we are in mid-process of automating the meters to smart meters. We have two different technologies we're working with currently. One is the smart meter that actually reports the usage via cellular data, and we can see it here in the office in real time. Very cool, that's the wave of the future, that's where we're headed. Unfortunately, we only have, I think, about 10,000 of those meters installed, and we hit a wall with the supply chain issues and the computer chips. They can't get the computer chips we need, so we can't get the meters we need. We were hopeful to have it done by now, but it's not. The old meters, the census meters, are radio read. So they have a radio in the truck, and as they drive around, the meters report back to that truck as they drive past, and they take that information back here to the office, download it, and do the billing that way. Yeah, so
Pretty remarkable.
it is. It's cool stuff. We're finding that the cellular reads don't work everywhere because of our topography and the cellular signals up here. So we'll never fully break away from the radio reads, but we'll do the best we can.
I know that in the last couple of years that we've bought lots and lots of meters back. Have they all been installed, the ones that are on the shelf? And
Yes. In fact, we are getting concerned that the lot of meters we have in stock in the warehouse is barely enough to just tackle the ones that are breaking, attrition. We don't have hardly have enough just for that. So, but we hope in the next year we'll get the remaining balance of the 10,000 that are left to change out, and we'll work with maintenance and Steve's team there, and we'll knock the rest out. That's what our goal is. Plus, it's a great customer benefit to be able to log into NID, into your account, and see how much water you're using in real time.
I have a comment on this. I got a lot of calls, and when I went to the MAC meeting, there was quite consternation about the postcards asking customers to go to 3 days a week. watering.
We get those calls too, believe
They
it or
were
not.
very upset because they're saying, well, we paid.
Exactly.
And we don't use all of our water typically anyway, and
Yes.
so now you're gonna tell us when we can use our allocation. So there was a lot of pushback.
We got a ton of it too, here at the office, and basically, we understand, and you paid for your allotment, so we're just encouraging you to cut back if you can on those 3 days. I mean, we can't force you to, you paid for it. And a lot of people were really willing, and we also highlighted, and I think it highlighted in the postcard as well, that this is really about ornamental landscaping. If you have a true agricultural need, or crops, or trees, or whatever you're doing, do what you need to do for your business and your functions. But ornamental, we're asking you to cut back if you can.
Right. Yeah, and I just say conservation is a way of life. We just need to be aware of how much water we are using. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that no one should be wasting water, no matter what.
Agreed.
And we would be, oh, go ahead.
Will you comment on whether people, as a result of the postcard, actually signed up for a reduction?
Yeah, we'll get to that. I have it in here, yeah.
We would be remiss if we didn't do this.
Yeah, we're doing our part.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And it's our job to say, hey, yeah, we're asking. You have to use all of it, we understand, but if you can cut back, do it.
Okay, so on that line of thought, we have performed 145 high water use house calls. That's to our treated water customers. We've responded to 67 raw water waste calls. Those were dispatched out, and those generally go to our water distribution operators. We mailed 2,056 high consumption letters. We repaired and replaced 237 faulty meters and 191 endpoints. That's the little electronic doogad on the top that does the reading. And then we've also attended the Home and Garden Show, the Fire Safe Council, Health and Safety, and Fire Preparedness Carnival. And you can see in the pictures there, a couple things. There is the Mulch Madness. We completed that, and then also that's what our booth looks like at these Home and Garden shows. I think it looks very professional, and the team really does a great job. So thank you to them.
I have a question
Yeah.
about the, what triggers a high water use house call versus the letter we've all gotten once in a while?
So, a couple of things. So a lot of times we'll get the system will automatically set out a notification that, hey, this particular user's month-over-month usage has really increased, sends out the red flag. We'll send out a letter. A lot of times they'll call us back and we'll have a conversation, and they'll ask for a visit to see what's going on.
It's not automatic because it's high water.
It's not, the letter's automatic. The physical response to the property a lot of times is interactions with the customers. Yeah.
And I have a question about that. Has any of the staff gone out, like at 5 o'clock in the morning? Early morning, when most people set their timers, because it has to be before 6 o'clock, so they set their timers to come on at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock. And that's when all the geysers and everything happened. Because back in the day, years ago, when I was a senior engineer at Sacramento County Water Maintenance District, I sent staff out at that time of day. And that's where we found most of the people who, they have no idea that their sprinklers or heads are broken and there's geysers everywhere.
Right.
Water running down the gutter. So have we done any of that?
We don't generally do that. We can if we have instances going on, and actually we do it on the raw water system quite often because we tend to see, how do I say this?
You're running down the road.
Extracurricular diversions that happen at night. So we send staff out at night to check on those things. But on the treated water side, not as much, and we rely on our meter technology to tell us that usage is off the charts during those times.
Even, we've irrigated our vineyard and come out in the morning and a lateral broke or something, so that does happen.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's a good time of day to send staff out, because it helps with community engagement as well, just to help them find their leaks that they may not even be aware of.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Moving into water distribution, we'll start with the backflow and pressure regulating valve team. This is a group of about 3 folks. They are very busy. So since January, they have continued the routine testing of NID's backflow devices, of which I put in here there's more than 2,000. I actually looked it up. It's more closer to 1,900. But regardless, every single year they go through and test every single one of these 1,900 devices, verify if it passes or fails. If it fails, we put in the parts, fix it, and replace it if we need to.
And this is a protection of the treated water system, by the way, I should mention that. It basically protects any backflow from the customer side of the system from coming into our treated water side. These guys do this in and out every year, and our customers are paying a monthly fee for this service of $11 to $15, depending on the size of your device. But they make that payment and don't have to worry about it again. Many other agencies put this all on the customers. They have to pay for some other third party to test their device and replace it, and then show verification to the water purveyor that it's been done. Kind of like that we control our own facilities through this program, so I think that's a win.
And for clarification or update, this is on where you have both treated and raw water on your property.
This is where you have both treated and raw water on your property, or if you're a commercial institution, we would now require an RP, so, because we don't really know what kind of manufacturing or other chemicals are on the other side of the meter. So we are also working with the maintenance department on new RP installations. So you can see in that picture there, it looks like a mess. It's a bunch of spaghetti sticking up out of the ground. Each one of those is an RP device going to a business. And so it looks like a mess. We're going to get to a picture here in just a second and show you what it looks like as a finished product. But it's almost an art form what those guys do, lining these things up and keeping them all organized. Reduced pressure backflow device. So we have two different devices. One's a double check valve, which basically is an enclosed device and has a little check valve in it that won't allow water to flow backwards. An RP device is similar, however, it has an air gap in it, and if water tries to flow backwards, it just dumps it out on the ground and won't let it flow backwards, period. It just goes to atmosphere. These are all RPs, which is why they're sticking up above the ground like that. They have to be exposed.
Where are these located?
This particular one, I believe, is off of Greenhorn and Grass Valley. A little commercial subdivision going in there. I could be off on that, but...
And did your staff put these in as opposed to maintenance?
It's a combination of both. So, as I mentioned in that bullet there, we're working with maintenance on this particular installation.
There's one to each new business.
Correct.
That's why there's so many of them.
Yes.
A bunch of stalls.
Yeah, it's like a mini mall, right, where you got a bunch of businesses being put in and they all have their own meter.
Mhm.
The problem with this is it takes a bit of real estate, and so that becomes an issue. We're also doing outreach on retrofits of potential cross connections. So every 5 years, the state requires us to reach out to businesses and fill out a survey to see what they're manufacturing or doing in their place of business. And if it's changed, we may have to go back and retrofit their meter with a backflow device. For instance, we'll typically have a commercial business, let's say they're serving ice cream, and they go out of business 5 years later, it's a hair salon. Well, a hair salon requires backflow protection, so we'll have to go back and retrofit them. So we're actively working on fixing those that answered the survey and now need a backflow device. The survey was done in 2021.
Does the county alert you when a business changes?
Not always, which is why we do these surveys, so we can take control of our own destiny on that.
Huh. It seems like we would try to stay, it's the same thing with, selling properties on raw water, where now you get someone new into the property and they won't allow a pipeline that's been there for 100 years, because now this is my property.
Yeah.
It's better to work directly with the county so we can try and get ahead of it.
Okay. I don't know that the county always gets notification of the change of the function of the business, is the big problem.
You can't count on
They
that.
don't have
Yeah.
a license that they have to get.
Well,
Not always.
if there's no license, it's usually, as a commercial property owner, you know, you place the tenant in, it's their responsibility to go get their business license from the city. The county does not issue business
Oh,
licenses.
the city then.
The
Yeah.
city,
Whoever
however,
these licenses.
it should be said that it is the tenant's responsibility. So many of them, if I happen to know, don't go get their business license. So there's a breakdown in two places,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay, moving on, we have two new certified backflow specialists, Matt Halverson and Troy Gomes, both passed the test, so that's awesome. We now have 4 people here at the district who can test these devices. Actually, there may be a few more in maintenance as well. I don't want to leave them out, but just wanted to highlight, these guys are always out there trying to increase their education and get new certifications, which is really cool. And then the PRV, it's pressure reducing station. So you know, the topography here is up and down, up a hill, down a hill, up a hill, down a hill. That wreaks havoc on your water pressure. The district has over 250 different PRV stations where we have these big valves that are continually regulating the pressure as it goes up and down the hills. And very specialized work, and we have one gentleman that handles all of them. So a lot of pressure on him, but he's doing a great job. And the next slide here, I'll get to a PRV valve here in just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, this kind of goes back to my last question. So, does the district place the cost of installing one of those backflow devices on, in this case, my example will be a tenant in a multi-tenant facility? So let's say they were an office use and now they're a hair salon.
Yeah.
Whose responsibility is it? Is it the property owners to do that?
Yes.
Okay. And what do they cost?
It varies based on the size of the device, and I don't have the cost off the top of my head, but it's.
Isn't it like $1,000?
Yeah, it's close to. I think, I want to say $800 is the neighborhood, but, depends on the size of the device. Yep, and then the monthly fee on top of that after that. But the good news is, that once it's in and done, they don't have to worry about it other than the monthly fee. We take care of the rest. And here's the finished product. So that photo I showed you earlier looked a bit like spaghetti. Well, here you go. Now it's all lined up in order in a nice freeze-proof box. There's the box on the right. That's what it looks like when it's done. So, yeah. Yeah, insulated, keeps it from freezing. And it has to be above ground so that the water can dump out. And you can see it's got a concrete pad so it doesn't erode when or if the water flows out backwards. So kind of a finished product for you to look at there. And then this is the Osborne Hill PRV, which we recently replaced. The valve itself is this guy right here. You can see I'm highlighting in red up here on the screen. The bolts and all of that on this particular station were completely rusted out. So you can see on this picture on the right, we replaced all the valves and the manual crank valves as well. Just basically retrofitted this entire station through the help of maintenance on this one as well. But that's basically what our pressure regulating stations look like. It's a giant valve that is continually modulating and making sure that we don't overpressurize all the customers' homes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the previous installation, was that part of the E. George system?
That's the Loma Rica
The
system.
Loma Rica system, and is this also the Loma
This
Rica?
is the same, yes.
I see so far this year, we've spent $700,000 on the E. George system.
Okay.
And are any of these part of that expenditure?
No, probably not. Keep in mind, however, so when we do projects like this, we'll generally charge them to the system they're in. There's other instances, though, where, and I'll get to this in the slides, we have left Loma Rica off for a majority of the year. Now that we have these robust inner ties, we're trying to increase efficiency by leaving Loma Rica off for an extended period of time, saving on power costs and all those things and wear and tear. But we're operating E. George at a higher rate, and thereby their costs for E. George are going to go up a little bit.
Okay. Because we spent $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 on Loma Rica as well, so.
Yeah.
We're just updating it while it's off.
So is that, so you're looking at the
I'm looking at the warrant.
warrants?
I know, apparently these numbers don't, but anyway, I was just curious if any of this work was involved in these, to reflect these costs.
Yeah, I'm sure they're in there, yes. Especially the, this valve replacement, all the costs of that are gonna be in there.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay, so, water distribution, so we're moving on to the distribution crews. We've been managing irrigation flows. We're kind of at that time of year where we've peaked, and we're gonna be at these flows basically till September now. So we're just managing, trying to keep the system as flowing as best we can with the amount of algae and growth we're getting in the canals. Usually is peaking this time of year too. So got our hands full working with maintenance on that as well.
Did you get that new user now, or whatever that is on?
Messer, yeah.
Is it fixed? Is it?
Yes, as I reported, the day after they called, we did a treatment, so should be good. Customer service calls continue. As I just mentioned, we're replacing boards and screens and doing aquatics. The big items we've had is the South Yuba Canal outage occurred. So basically, PG&E suffered the same algae growth on the South Yuba Canal. They don't use chemicals in their water, so the way they handle the algae growth is they shut the canal off and let the sun bake it. Okay, it works, but it's hard on us because it creates a water outage. So we had to fire up our diesel pumps there on the picture. That's our siphon lane pump station, and pumped water to our customers so that they weren't experiencing the same outage.
How long did that outage last? I'm sorry.
24 hours.
24 hours?
Yep.
And what did it cost to run the diesel pump?
That's a great question. So it was about, we went through about 600 gallons of diesel at we only paid about $6 a gallon, but still, it's a substantial cost.
With that, I'm gonna, go ahead, not for an answer for today, but does PG&E, they do not use herbicides or pest herbicides on the South Yuba Canal?
They do not. They were proposing, they used to, they stopped for a while, they were proposing to do it again. They started on a permit, but I think they've held off because they believe the canal will be transferred to NID soon.
Right. I'm just, is there any savings?
That's my question too.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
good question. So, there is a bit of a benefit though to us running these pumps. They're emergency pumps, so they don't run all the time. So it's good to get in there and fire them up and make sure they still work appropriately and run them through the paces.
You said this was siphon line, this one's the pumps that pump out of Scott's line up to Cascade.
Yes, correct. So pumps out of, actually Lower Scott's out of the DS Canal, pumps to the Cascade and also the Snow Mountain Canal. A lot of in-home use, which is why we fired these up, because those folks rely on that water.
What's the capacity of those pumps again?
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's not, yeah, that's difficult. I think we decided the most we're gonna get is 12 to 15 CFS out of that. So it's not enough to sustain the irrigation system, irrigation canals. It is enough to sustain the treated water needs.
Gotcha.
So 24 hours with no water in the canal seems to take care of an algae problem?
Yeah, we had the same concern, and there's an additional concern to that. If it does kill the algae and you put the water back in, then what happens to it? It just flows down the system and plugs all the screens. So there's a lot of issues with it. We got lucky in this time, the day they did the outage, it was very, very hot, and in this section it was sun exposed, so yes, it appears to have done the trick for now.
That was an amigo blog saying that he looked at it back a year or two ago.
Well, it's kind of been in PG&E's nature. In fact, in years past, they've shut the canal down. Actually, they've limited it to about 30 CFS, and then went in there with pressure washers and brushes and scrubbed it out. And I actually prefer that method because we still have water that way. So something we'll get to work on in the future when the facility becomes ours.
Right.
So that was emergency outage number one. Emergency outage number two was a Bear River Canal issue, and the river fire area that experienced that burn, the soil is letting go and has a big old giant boulder came down off the hill and straight into the canal. And there's a picture for you. So at first I saw the picture and it didn't look like it that impressive, but now with the guy standing in the back, it gives you a little bit of scale. We got very lucky that giant boulder did not breach the berm. It just kind of dented the concrete and then went into the canal. PG&E was very diligent and went in there and fixed that hole pretty quickly. However, the rock still remains as far as I know. So it's a very difficult access point and they're not sure how to get it out just yet. So maximum flows will not be had on the Bear River Canal until they get that out. But right now, there's enough flow to sustain our needs, so we're okay. So, and then last but not least, our team has been working on multiple evening outages. We have had a myriad of areas where we're doing work in commercial and or medical areas. So we're doing those at night so we don't inconvenience the businesses. And working with maintenance on those, they've been challenging, but we've made it through. So This is in the Ridge Road Hughes area. Okay, moving on to our electrical team. Been working on the Altair tank site and integrating our SCADA. Basically what that means is been programming the computer system to tell the tank when to fill, when to drop, tank mixers, communications, alarms, all of that good stuff. Our electrical team's been working on it. We've installed a battery backup system at Banner Taylor. Banner Taylor is one of the few locations, that's our treated water tank site on the E. George system. One of the few tank sites where we don't have automated generators that kick on and off on their own. So this battery backup system will keep the alarm systems up and running until we get a generator in there fired up and running. So important as we get into the PSPS world.
Is this part of that SGIP program?
This is separate from that. That is continuing, however, at E. George as we speak, so they are working on it. And then last but not least, they did the Scott's Flat pressure pump replacement. This is to keep the campgrounds in water at Scott's Flat. Working on telemetry installations. We've talked about these a lot, that we're automating these canal measuring stations. And so the picture on the right kind of gives you an idea of what that looks like. That green tube you see there in the picture is kind of our old school measuring station. There's just a float in there on a piece of paper that draws a line as the float goes up and down. Very simple, but very effective. The box on the right you can see is the addition of our automation. So there's your cellular panel that is providing the power, and inside the box is little cellular cards that transmit the data back to our office. And so now we can do these electronically in real time. It's pretty cool. We're doing about 3 a year, hopefully do more if we get some future grants.
How many total do we have now?
I think we're around 15, but don't.
On 15 of our canals?
Yeah.
Are these at the very end of the canals, or just?
Most of them are at the head.
At the head?
Yeah. The ultimate goal is to get the ends done as well, but we're starting with the heads because those are more important.
How many ultimately do we need for this?
Oh, gosh, it's in the hundreds. I think there's 180 head stations. There's a lot. I don't know that we'll ever get there, but we'll do the best we can. We're hoping for some grant funds to help us with.
Have you seen, in those areas where so we have some where they're at the head and the tail?
We don't really, not sure that we have any automated at the tail yet. That's where we rely on the distribution operators to go out there and give us the readings. That's part of their daily routine, though.
But there's not these cams, there's not the readings like we see here on the end. Or are there like green cans?
There are readings at the ends of the canals, most all of them. It won't necessarily be a green can. It may just be a V-notch weir with a staff gauge, and they read it and write down the numbers. Eventually, I would imagine we'll get to a point where we have more and more with cans.
Like kind of rock chip silos.
Yeah, they're very simple, but they work.
What kind of chamber? They have a name.
A stilling well.
Stilling well.
Yeah.
Nice CBMs.
I go find one all the time on
And then the picture on the bottom left there, that's Greg. He's doing a check on the portable generators, getting ready for our PSPSs as we expect to experience in the fall. Our electrical team also worked diligently on the repairing of the communication line at the campground. You can see in the picture on the right there, an RV hit the phone line and basically pulled the tower down, and our electrical crew came out and put the whole thing underground. They did a great job on that. They've also just completed installing a UVAS monitor at North Auburn treatment plant. This is basically an ultraviolet absorption spectrophotography, I don't know, some goofy label. Anyway, what it does is uses ultraviolet to check for contaminants in the water. And we're looking for is detecting any color issues or TOC issues. We've had some issues at North Auburn with both of those in the recent history. So this unit will actually warn us ahead of time and allow us to change the treatment to capture all that ahead of time. So looking forward to that. Not a cheap unit, but should come in handy. And then yeah.
With the RV driver that broke the line, is there any?
Did they pay?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. We'll have to ask Monica on that one. We just fixed it. We don't do the billing. Okay, also, the electrical group completed the MAG 3 Pump 1 replacement. This is the pump that pumps water out of the Combi Ophir system up into the MAG 3 canal, which then feeds the Lake of the Pines treatment plant and the surrounding area. We also replaced the pressure pump at Loma Rica treatment plant. And then, the picture on the right there, you can see, I believe that's Richard doing communications in the PLC box at the Alta Sierra tank site. Kind of cool. You think of electrical as being these big wires, but then you look at what he's working on there. It's a bunch of little tiny wires going into a computer system. Those guys do it all. Okay, switching into water treatment. As I mentioned earlier, we've been working really hard at maximizing the use of interties, trying to maximize efficiency essentially. We've left Lake of the Pines and Loma Rica off as long as possible and relied on E. George to feed both of those systems as much as we could. There's no point in running the system and wearing out all that equipment when one plant can handle all. So we're trying to do that. It's kind of nice having those options now that we have the interties completed. The campground systems are all functional. We are really having some difficulties chasing down leaks in Jackson Meadows, which is why we would like to encourage the Forest Service to take that back, but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah.
Back to this, the 2 plants that are offline right now?
They're online now, but for most of the beginning, yes.
So when they're off, you still have to keep them in ready state, right? You still have to operate them and put flows like the pumps or anything, you just shut it down and walk away?
We shut it down, we drain them, and we mothball. When we know we're getting close, we fill them up, get them prepared and ready. We are aware that that might be a challenge in an emergency event. We got to fill them and get them running. We feel like we can do that in a 12-hour window. Wow. 12 to 24 hours. Depends on the size of the said basin. Loma Rica is bigger, it takes a little longer, but.
Pumps need to be exercised. I mean, the equipment sometimes it's not so good just to sit, but.
Correct. Yes.
Maintenance is, do you have maintenance people that exercise those?
So, yeah, it's a weird mix, right? So our electrical team does all the maintenance on the pumps themselves, and we'll do the exercising and the magging out of the charges going through them. But the actual physical replacement, like you have to remove a pump and put one back in, that's where maintenance comes in and helps us out.
Plants that are shut down for an extended period of time that need dedicated staff when they are up and running?
Yeah, good question. That's basically when we switch into maintenance mode. We have an extra person that would normally be running the Loma Rica plant. We'll put him on maintenance on E. George, and he'll be going through and doing the maintenance, the O&M. Oh, yeah, they do it all. They do the calibration of the equipment. They'll go back to the Loma Rica plant even though it's off. Good time to do maintenance. So we just switch what they do.
So the estimate, if you were able to take Lake Wildwood water treatment offline, the estimated savings would be over $400,000 a year.
Oh, I'd have to look, Rich. I don't have the number off the top of my head.
That was the figure I heard.
Yeah.
The union's okay with the operators doing all maintenance? They're not being operators?
This is what we do. Your treatment plant operator is part of the job description, yeah. Okay, last but not least, we're also working on a powdered activated carbon system for North Auburn. As I mentioned, we had some taste and odor issues in North Auburn. This system will help alleviate that. It's an additional level of treatment we can provide. So here's another instance where water treatment has gone in and drained, cleaned, and inspected 8 tanks. This is also a combination with, between our treatment guys and maintenance. We generally drain it and clean it, and maintenance will come in and check the paint and do the painting. If it needs paint, then we go back in and do the disinfecting and cleaning. What you see in this picture is our treatment plant operator has got a hose with 200 parts of chlorine shooting on the walls and all the contact points of the tank, and you let that sit for 30 minutes, and it gives you a full disinfection, and then you can go in there and fill her up. Yeah, kind of cool though that the tank, I mean, look at how clean it is. It's yeah, very, very clean.
We could have our.
Well, look at the scale. How big is, how big is a gazillion gallons?
You know, I don't know which tank that is, I apologize, but, that's not the biggest. When you get one of our 3 million gallon tanks, the scale's pretty crazy, yeah.
If you ever have a 200-year anniversary, we're gonna have it here.
You don't want to be in there. It's very echoey in there, I'll tell you what. So every 5 years, we have 44 tanks. So we're just on a rotating schedule. We do about 8 tanks a year-ish. But, yeah, that's what we do.
Basically, it's 12 trips.
Yeah, I know, it is beautiful.
Okay,
How long does it take?
what's that?
How long does it take from the time to start draining it, cleaning it?
Well, it depends. So bigger tanks take a little longer, but generally we try to send the water into the distribution system and let the system demand draw the tank down on its own. When we get to a critical level, we isolate the tank, send it out the drain, and then it takes about a day to clean it, and then maybe a day for maintenance to come in and do the paint inspection, and then for us, we can have it disinfected in a few hours and refilled. So within a week, you can get the whole cycle done. That's pretty aggressive. Generally takes a little longer, but yeah. Yep, and then here's the Lake of the Pines Reservoir. So as I mentioned, the Lake of the Pines treatment plant's been off for quite some time, which allowed us to actually, for the first time since this has been built, dry this reservoir up and try to clean it out. This is a picture of what it looked like when we first drained it, and you can see it's nothing but a lot of mud and sludge. This next picture is what it looks like today. It's still empty, and we're letting the sun do its magic and try to dry up as much of that mud and sludge as possibly can, because it's hard to truck off mud. But I think you can see the difference, just how much the mud has shrunk between the two pictures. So just by letting Mother Nature do that, it's making the work a lot easier for us. I believe maintenance crews are going to be in there in the next few weeks, and then they're going to really start digging that out, and we'll have a better reservoir back. I mean, it's really started to fill in.
So Chip, one of the issues there, as you well know, is the geese landing on the pond at night.
Yes.
And are there any ways that we know of to encourage them to go down to the big lake instead of picking our pond?
So, it's funny, we have found that they're at the big lake during the day, and at night, they come up to ours for protection, I am assuming. But we have tried everything, laser lights, we've tried music, we've tried sending operator out at night. Nothing has worked so far. Our next step is to try fishing wire across. That will prevent them from landing in the lake. So,
Fish line works on egg fields.
yes, and that's where we got the idea, so, yeah. So, we're still working on it.
Yeah.
We have crow guns.
There are other less humane ways, but we're not going down that path. Okay, here's the new Alta Sierra storage tank. It is actually full and online now. They're still working through some minor punch list items, but kind of some cool pictures, and I have some more. I wish I would have included them that show the entirety of the tank, and this is a 3 million gallon tank, so when you're in there, the scale's rather phenomenal. But kind of cool. The hatch there on the left, that's what it looks like. You feel like you're in a cruise ship, looking out the little tiny portal window. And then the one on the right there is the overflow at the top of the tank. Nice big concrete tank, should be forever. Moving on to water resources, this is our hydrography and water measurement forecasting team. You can see this is some of the things they do there on the left. Again, is one of those automated telemetered canal measuring stations. And then in the middle there, I believe that's Mitch doing the snow survey. And then on the right is a typical canal measuring station weir. As we talked about just a minute ago, the tail ends of the canals don't always have that big giant green tube. Sometimes it's just as simple as a little weir with a measuring gauge on it. So these folks have been very busy. They do our water forecasting for us, and we've been talking about that on a regular basis, so you all are familiar with that. They have completed the water right filings for 2021. They have set up 128 measuring stations for the beginning of the irrigation season. They rebuilt 8 measurement weirs, and they've also been working on alternative compliance. So SB 88 has required the district to monitor, measure, and report real-time usage in our system. There's some locations that are not conducive to that. Up on our BS canal, our Bowman-Spalding Canal, we have a lot of natural waterways that come in, and you really can't put a measuring station in there without spending an exorbitant amount of money to capture the range of flows we see in these creeks. So the state has allowed for alternative compliance, but you have to recertify that every 5 years. We just got past, we did the initial round 5 years ago, and now we just got recertified for the next 5 years, so we're in good shape. This is, however, something that will be tackled when we get a new FERC license. I believe it requires station installations there. We have completed our settlement contracts with PG&E, so basically paid for all the water we bought last year, which was great. It actually didn't end up being the total amount we anticipated, which is good, so we saved a little money there. Additional drought workload has been very substantial on this team. This is really only 3 people, so they're very busy. In the past, water right filings were only every 3 years. In the 2015 drought, they escalated that to be yearly, and now in the current drought, we're doing it monthly. And so these guys are very swamped, but holding down the fort and doing a good job. Also, curtailments are in place, and so we're abiding by all of those. And on top of all of that, they submitted an application for a water and energy efficiency grant with the Bureau, and we're hoping to get that award so that we can put in some more automated measuring stations. This is just some pictures of what they do. This is the weir boards in Deer Creek on the left in Lake Wildwood area. And on the right, that's maintenance helping us put those in. They're not small boards, and so it takes the full lift truck to put these in, and we do this every year. Okay, moving on. So when we had a WHO committee, we used to provide benchmarking updates. I thought I would show to you what those used to track, and that we're still doing it just in case no, I added these at the last second. I do apologize, but I figured you might be interested in knowing what we are tracking. And I can provide it to you if you'd like. But basically, here is a graph of the new treated water accounts. And the bar graphs in red are this year, and all the other ones are previous years. And really, we just kind of do this to see if there's any anomalies in the things we're doing and if there's anything unusual going on. This is really tracking as is typical. So far this year, we've done 53 new treated water accounts. Not unusual. In past years, you can see it's ranged from 89 to, gosh, what's the low, 44 last year. So we're kind of right on track. That one in July, that blue line that goes way to the top above 30, that was the Ridge Meadows subdivision being installed. So we just had a block of new parcels being put in and led to that one spike.
So these are mostly new homes?
This is a range of all of it. So it's new homes, it's infill, like Alta Sierra, Lake of the Pines. There's parcels that haven't sold since the inception. They finally sold and they put in a new meter. So it's a mix. We also track new raw water sales in miners inches. You can see here that every year it happens right at the beginning of irrigation season. We get a huge demand for new sales, which, you know, is to be expected, and then it rapidly drops off from there. This year we've had 2,364 acre feet in new raw water sales.
It's helpful if this was in minor, it says in minor inches, but then it's in acre feet.
It's in both. So the inches is the graph, and then the report on the right is acre feet.
Okay.
And by the way, the total on the right is for the irrigation season. It's a total for the irrigation season. Okay?
How much was given up? Was that net or gross?
This is just what was purchased.
Purchase,
Yes.
Additional.
Yes.
And people, did anybody drop off?
So I'm getting to that one next. This is new accounts, essentially, new water. This is where existing customers request changes. This is kind of an interesting slide because basically 2015 all the way up to, 2015, 16, and 17 were all increases. So our existing customers called us up and said, hey, I need more water. Since 2018, every year's been a decrease. So our existing customers are all now cutting back.
Is that in alignment with the most recent rate increases?
It could be. It could be a multitude of reasons. It could be drought response. It could be, it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
That drought.
Yeah, and it's interesting, 2015 was a bad year, drought year. We asked for everyone to cut back, but the overall change was an increase.
Did we have new customers?
So the new customers was a slide before.
Okay.
This is only just existing customers and what they are doing. So it's an interesting analysis.
I don't know about other members, but I would like very much to get a copy of.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
And Chip, one other question.
Yeah.
So we cut back, our raw water purchase last year, and we kept that same reduced level this year.
yes.
Does it only show up in the 2021 as a reduction, not 2022?
Correct.
We're not showing cumulative.
That's correct. Yes, yeah. Okay. Treated water outages. This looks like a mess because it's just a lot of information, but again, the reason we track it is just to see if there's an anomaly going on and we're having an unusually high number of emergency outages and whatnot. This shows we're kind of right on track this year with years past. Bless you.
Thank you.
And then here's our emergency treated water outages. And although those spikes look big, if you look at the total number, it really isn't all that bad. So May was kind of a busy month, though. We had 11 emergency treated water outages, which is an unusual amount for us. That occasionally happens, though. And it seems to be that cusp of when we go from wintertime flows to summertime flows. That's when all the leaks pop up. Same thing for raw water outages. This is kind of cool. You can see we schedule our raw water outages during the off-season, and this graph definitely shows that. We try not to interrupt water service during irrigation season. And then last but not least, I do have a slide that has emergency raw water outages, but there's like 5. It wasn't even worth showing, so that's good.
Very good job.
And then we also track customer communications and the amount of calls that came in. We kind of already covered that, but here it is in graphic format per month. Okay, so we are still doing that benchmarking in the background, so at any given time we can provide those updates if necessary. And then, sorry, I know you want to be done, but me too. We're almost there. Okay, we'll move through this quickly. So, and I'm going to put this online like we always do, but here's our latest precipitation and water supply graphs. We started the new precipitation year, so we're at 0 for the year, obviously. We did end up last year at 87% of normal, which was pretty doggone good, at 60.18 inches of rain. Our reservoir storage continues to be a highlight. It's broken. Next slide.
Batteries. Just the batteries.
There you go.
At the end of the season?
Yeah, correct. NID reservoir storage as of right now, 243,000 acre feet, which is 112% of average, 90% of capacity. Excuse me, we continue to be about 20 to 25,000 acre feet above our average. So we're doing really well on storage.
So we haven't bought any PG&E water?
We have not.
End of the year carryover?
So we're somewhere in that 160,000 acre foot range is what we anticipate. In fact, now that you bring it up, here's the slide.
Wow.
I think we're actually going to be a little bit above that, Rich, but for now, we're tracking very well.
So, and chose not to buy PG&E?
It's a financial move at this point. If we don't need it to support the reservoir storage, then why not save $1 million? So the additional part I'll add to that is if we do buy it and our reservoirs continue to be full and we don't utilize it, it just ends up being spilled in the winter months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that analysis we're going to have to do every year.
And we're going to back you however you want to do it.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, treated water usage. We talked about this earlier in the year. We were not getting the conservation we were asking for, but that really changed in May and June. Again, I'd like to think it's the messaging we're doing, but more often than not, it's Mother Nature, and it was a very cool and wet month. So we'll continue to track this and continue to encourage people to cut back, but essentially we're 2% less than 2020. And as you all know, the governor's asked us to be 20% less than in 2020, so.
How does, and end of the year, we're looking for 3,000 acre feet would equal to 20% population?
Yes.
How do we make that up?
Well, there's a couple of ways, but I don't know that the state's really gonna knock on our door and say, where did it come from? We're gonna do our best to show we're complying with all the regulations, and we are so far. If we don't achieve our target, there's really nothing in the current regulation that involves fines or punitive damages. So, we're just gonna continue with what we're doing and encourage the messaging, right? Here's the latest drought. This is the July 5th drought monitor, and then here's the escalation in July 19th. So the northern half of the state is kind of hovering in extreme to severe drought, where the southern half of the state's getting worse. And then last but not least, here's our seasonal drought outlook. This is through September 30th, and basically it says we're just going to be in persistent drought, which is not shocking given that it's the summer months and we probably won't get any precipitation. So that's kind of where we're at. And that's it.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really great.
I think meetings ago, we had asked that this summary of all these graphs be put on the, present them here, put them on the end of the board agenda items. So if we're going to a meeting or someone could just grab all three slides at once.
Yes, that was requested, so we ended up putting them on our website. And so every time I do one of these, every board meeting, I update our website with new slides.
On the board agenda item page?
It's in the water and conservation tab on our webpage.
And is it all in one, you don't have to go to each individual?
It's all in one packet, yeah, it's one, yep,
So it's by where the individual ones are.
individual ones. What do you mean by
You
that?
have to go to precipitation and you have to go to.
No. So you'll see a water supply update, you click on the link, and it is this entire packet. Yep. And if you need help finding it, let me know. I'll send you a link.
Super. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Can I ask for public comment?
Yeah.
Well, sure. Okay. Does any member of the public have any questions before Jim goes away? On this item?
Oh, I went away.
Very informational, very informative item on the water operations department update. If you'd like to ask a question or comment, start item or come to the podium. Okay.
Got more
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
All right, next item is general manager's report. And since our general manager's on vacation, we'll ask our assistant general manager.
Thank you. Thank you, board. So I do have 4 things to update you on today, and these are all pretty fun activities. So regarding grants, Chip mentioned that a grant was put in recently from the Water Resources for some of those telemetry readers. So we're looking forward to that. Hopefully the Bureau comes back positively with that. Just the other day, or last week, we were officially awarded $18,000 for a new parking lot at Scotts Flat, so from the county, and that came from the County Outdoor Visitor Safety Fund, funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. So thank you and to the Nevada County Board of Supervisors and staff for going through a long list of applicants and accepting NID's proposal for a nice-sized parking lot between gates 1 and 2. We think it'll hold about 15 to 20 vehicles, with some signage about where they are, what they're doing. And so this is really in an effort to reduce a lot of the congestion that happens down at Scotts Flat Road, getting people off the road. A lot of people like to park, walk, go bike riding along the trails. So we're thankful for the county for that. The second one is kind of a 3-part series with the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. We're inputting pre-proposals that are due on Friday, and so we've been working with a couple different options. One, we're not sure the total cost yet, but we're partnering with the Nevada County Fire Safe Council. They are going to try to get some implementation money to do forest-related fire fuels removal from the river fire on private parcels down near the Bear River on the Nevada County side in particular. NID, as you know, has done work on roughly 80 acres of fire fuel reduction from the river fire. We're working on this fall on another 150 acres that we received about $550,000 from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. So we're thankful for the Fire Safe Council to see the prioritization of kind of expanding into private lands along that burn scar. So that's going to be great.
So they do the work?
Yeah, we're hoping so. We're hoping so.
And we would oversee it?
Nope, we're just supporting them.
Oh, I see.
We're helping them with some maps and some background data and some of the mapping that we've already done thus far of the whole river fire. So we're supporting them on that. We are also working with the Forest Service right now on a pre-proposal to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy to help and actually complete Forest Service NEPA for about 3,000 acres of Forest Service land to do implementation on fire fuel reduction in and around all of our upper division watersheds, including Jackson Meadows, Fauchery, Bowman. So as you know, our high elevation reservoirs are surrounded by mostly and primarily Forest Service lands. This is an effort to help the Forest Service really prioritize implementation efforts to reduce fire fuel and catastrophic wildfire in and around our upper division reservoirs, Milton, Jackson Meadows, Bowman, Sawmill, Fauchery, all of those. So it's roughly a 3,000 acre zone, and we've been working with the Forest Service, so they're going to help us in identifying what is going to be needed in the NEPA. We're just basically a conduit. We're going to hire an individual or a company that's going to help us in the NEPA development. So we have requested that they help us in this because for us it's a high priority, and for them they've got millions of acres to do. This will help, we think, once NEPA is done, focus the Forest Service efforts to get that work done then around our properties. So I think it's a really win-win for everybody, and particularly for our constituents, and understanding the ramifications of what could happen way up in the upper country, and this would be a step towards mitigating that effort over the long term. So with that, we're also submitting a request for funding from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. Again, these are all Sierra Nevada Conservancy funded, so state, and they're just fantastic. Would really enjoy working with SNC on a lot of this work. They have requested of us to give them additional funding or additional proposals. So we're giving them roughly about a $1.3 million pre-proposal at the end of this week for about 400 acres of lands around that NID owns around our watersheds in the upper division. So it is the NID-owned parcels around the lakes and reservoirs, Jackson Meadows, Milton, Sawmill, Bowman, Fauchery, to treat those 400 or so acres. So that's about a $1.3 million ask that we'll be submitting on Friday as well. Finally, let's see, a couple things on the fair. We've been requested by the Nevada County Resource Conservation District and the Nevada County Farm Bureau. They are partnering together on a booth at the fair. So when you see their booth at the fair, we will have some NID information. They've reached out to us.
And some NID board members staffing the booth.
I didn't know that.
Don't talk about it.
Okay.
That was worked out at their barbecue.
Good on you.
Yeah.
All right. So you'll see a lot of NID material, water conservation efforts, as well as sort of what is a watershed, what do we do. So we're going to have some posters and flyers and handouts for them at that booth. So thank you to the Conservation District as well as the Farm Bureau for reaching out and giving a little more extra oomph to the community from NID.
It's a natural collaboration.
It's fantastic. Glad to hear that you two will be partnering with them on that.
I think they still have slots open.
They have some other spots.
If anybody else wants to.
Okay.
Help staff the booth.
That's a one to all.
Laura, did you have a question?
I staffed the booth last year, and it was really fun meeting people.
Yeah.
It was,
At the NID booth?
the NID booth.
Yeah, NID doesn't have a booth.
I understand, but
Yeah.
it's the same thing, you're staffing a Farm Bureau booth for NID, like the NID, so, I think. Did we ever do anything For Placer County Fair, did we get a banner, or, Director Hull had asked to have a banner or something, have some presence at the Placer County?
I'm not positive.
We didn't.
I don't know that answer. We'll look into it.
Oh, it's
Put
over.
that on our agenda.
Did it pass?
It passed, we did. Remember, do you guys remember? We asked
Yeah.
to have it.
There was a request, I recall. I don't remember what
I don't
what
think
the
so.
status was. Finally, on that, just want to remind everybody on the call and on Zoom and in the office here that, next month's board meeting, the 10th, is a special meeting, because that'll start then, I think, at 1 o'clock or 2?
Mhm.
1 o'clock? I just wanted to make that reminder.
And Plan for Water, both at Gold Miners.
And the plan for water will start, I believe, at 2 o'clock, Chris?
2 o'clock.
At, the Gold Miners Inn on Thursday,
Thursday?
Tuesday the 9th. Apologize. Tuesday the 9th.
Will that be 3 hours of Plan for Water and 1 hour of workshop?
I believe it's all plan for water.
Excellent.
It's strategic planning, it's the
It
venue.
is the strategic planning session.
We need that.
I believe it is all plan for water. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Greg. Board of Directors items, reports. Who would like to jump right in there?
I can. I'll
Okay.
follow up on Greg because, and thank you, Greg, for this. So I've been working in collaboration with, again, with the Nevada Conservancy and the City of Nevada City. They are putting in a planning grant to, work on a shape fuel break in the Deer Creek watershed from Nevada City down into the Lake Wildwood corridor. And yeah, and so I'm facilitating in a facilitative role, and we got the letter from, what do we call it, a template letter, and Greg gave it to Greg, and we collaborated on it, and I got it sent in, so they were gonna also be submitting on Friday
Good.
for that planning grant.
Yes, we supplied a letter of support for their
A letter of
planning grant.
support,
Yes.
right, for their planning grant. And that does not require us to give any money or staff time, by the way, it's just support. Then on July 20th, I attended the State Water Board Administrative Hearing Officer hearing on South Sutter and the other protests. That was interesting. I'm guessing at some point you'll have I'm looking at now, Council, you'll have something to say about that.
Closed session update, yes.
Right, closed session.
I expect we will.
Yeah, it was an interesting hearing. Different, really, than the other ones. But I guess I can't talk about it, but I did attend. Then this last week, I've met with a couple of farmers to discuss NID's drought response priorities, and I have some information that when we get to that point, some requests from some of the farmers, at least in my division. And lastly, I filed for re-election. So, that's it. Thank you.
Director Johansson?
I'll keep it quick. Oregon State University came out with an exhaustive study on why are we having these massive fires and why are they so energized. And they say it's not climate change, but it is our past forest practices. And they were definitive on their conclusions. So we like to see the Forest Healthy initiative we have at NID and the fact we're doing that treatment around all our reservoirs. The number that stood out to me also is that California has 33 million acres of forest. Huge number. If you go out to most of the ranches in Nevada County, you see that there's, somewhat managed. The new owners maybe don't manage them as the old guys used to or do, but you see a lot of fuel breaks and a lot of good management on these ranches that cost money, but the ranchers don't get paid for it. Just wanted to give a little plug in there for their community service and the fact that we have a heck of a job to do to get these forests turned around.
I'll add on to that, in Placer County, the individual property owners have done an amazing job disking a big area adjacent to the roadway, so it doesn't jump the roads, and it's really making a big impact on reducing fires down there.
When that fire came over from my neighbor, about a month ago, we had fuel breaks that I had, not disked, but I had scraped and worked out, and we had green zones, and it stopped the fire.
Director Johansson. Director Hall.
I attended the North Auburn Oprah Firewise Council meeting and, listened to a very interesting discussion about work that group is doing. And then last week, thanks to Chip, Shad, and Fred Waymar, we conducted a tour of the LOP water treatment plant and also visited Lake Combi and saw the pipeline that NID constructed. So really appreciate the staff support with that. They are excellent representatives of the district and appreciate their taking time for that. And the LOP board members were greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Director Peters.
Yes, I attended the West Placer County Watershed Resource Advisory Group meeting, and it's always an interesting meeting. I wish NID staff would attend because it's a good group of people. They need more participation, I think, because they're really trying to do things on a comprehensive level on West Placer streams and creeks, which includes many of our randoms, Doty Ravine, Raccoon Creek, Auburn Ravine. We all use these waterways. It would be helpful to participate. But at that meeting, Ben Ransom from PCWA did a presentation on a Moore Canal fish entrainment study that they did. Because the Auburn Ravine is an anadromous fish passage. It's real. There are fish in Auburn Ravine. And they found that there were 2,393 fish counted that would have been pulled into a diversion canal. And of them, there were 1,600 salmon and 6 steelhead trout. And so they're really looking, and what this group is trying to find is a comprehensive solution along Auburn Ravine, all the way from Auburn, all the way down to Verona, to get fish passage to where they're not getting entrained along the way. And PCWA, they've done a lot of good work to put in passages and putting notches on the boards, and they're being really proactive. And so I'm encouraged by what they're doing, and so I'm hoping that, and I heard that also that Hemp Hill is going to be constructed this year, and I've asked if the in-water work is also going to be completed, and I've not been given a definitive answer. Do you know if the in-water work for Hemp Hill is going to be completed by October 15th? That's fantastic. Yay, that's very exciting. Thank you very much.
Hey, Director Peters, I have a question.
Yeah.
I missed, and I'm sorry I missed this, the fish count figures you were citing, what location was that?
This was at Moore Canal Fish Entrainment Study. It's a Placer County Water Agency study.
Okay.
These are kind of preliminary numbers, but these are the numbers that they counted.
Can you orient me where Moore Canal?
Moore Canal, so Auburn Ravine goes all the way from Auburn, all the way down to Verona and down there. And so it's past Nelson, it's in West Lincoln, west of Lincoln.
Downstream of Hemp Hill?
Downstream, quite a way.
Well downstream.
Yes,
Well downstream.
Yes, considerably, and downstream of Lincoln Gauging Station, west of the city of Lincoln.
So it has a wet connection with Auburn Ravine?
Yes, there's a diversion. They have, just like we have right now, they have plates that they divert water into that canal to feed the fields.
Okay, thank you.
Placer County Water Agency customers. And South Sutter has them, so there's a lot of different agencies that have diversions on that system. And so, this group, and I'm really excited to work with this group because they're looking at it holistically, and there's grant money available, a lot of grant money for this type of work. And Auburn Ravine just happens to be an opportunistic stream where salmon are, because there's nowhere else for them to go, they're finding it. And I think it's a huge amenity for the city of Lincoln and for the community to have a anadromous fish passage going right through our community. It's really cool. I like it. Anyway, so that was very interesting, and I also went to the MAC meeting. The big takeaway that people were upset about was the postcards, and that we already spoke about. But I have a few things that and I wanted to let you know that I didn't notice this on the last meeting, but when we did the payroll technician or payroll position, we updated the Exhibit C of the unrepresented MOU, And that Exhibit C, I just want to remind you, it's been out of compliance for quite some time, but I just wanted to remind you, it continues to be out of compliance with our policy, 2090, our work apparel policy, which requires, boot compliance and that kind of thing, and unrepresented and all of that. So our policy 2090, work apparel, it came before the board last year, and it's silent also on all the protective clothing, all the fire protection clothing, and so our policy is out of date. I just wanted to remind you guys about this. As well as the policy 3080 procurement. Our policy 3080, we've asked for policy 3080 to come to the board for 4 years, increasingly with that, just this past couple of years. And I'd really like to see that as we're approving contracts. It's silent on any consulting or construction contracts. It goes straight to purchasing, and it's silent on how we do contracting. And I think policies are important. That's just me. And so I'd like to see the 3080 procurement policy come to the board. Also, a few months ago, the board had asked that we have an update on private conduits, discussing private conduits. We have many private conduits, especially down in my area, where we have one box, we have 15 customers, lots of customers, 8 to 15 customers. Everyone's paying an individual box fee, but we're not providing any service to them. And so in my tenure, it's been a reoccurring question of, wow, I got a problem with my box. And they say, well, it's on a private line, it's not our, and so it's something that I think the board should have a discussion about. And we agreed to have a discussion about it.
Those are both agendized.
I'd just like to see those agenda items.
Yeah.
You said they are
Yes.
agendized? Thank you.
Correct.
Where?
So the private conduit, I believe, is on August 10th,
It's coming.
and the other one, I'm not so sure, but it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
On the schedule.
They're on the schedule.
Okay, all right.
Super, thanks. Yeah, and then, also several months ago, when we did the resolution implementing emergency response to stage 2 drought contingency plan, on page 8 of that resolution, it's not mentioned anywhere in the memo, but it says that the district declares surplus and authorizes local sales at the discretion of the general manager, and the general manager is authorized to delegated responsibility to establish rules and regulations for surplus water sales, including eligibility for surplus water, price, terms, limitations on volume, delivery season, and other requirements in the discretion of the general manager. So I'm wondering, will the board ever see these rules and regulations are they being developed, or do we have rules and regulations on these surplus water?
So I think we can, I'm perhaps not the best person to speak to that, Jennifer probably is, but keep in mind that there's a class of kind of year in, year out surplus water users. Maybe Chip could speak to this. Those folks, typically small users, receive NID water every year there's a surplus. So those folks would receive service under the terms that are customarily provided. There is as the board is aware, and I'll be careful here because this is a matter of ongoing confidential settlement discussions, but we are having settlement discussions with South Sutter Water District. And one of the topics amongst many is a potential water sale to South Sutter Water District. And I can commit that on that particular transaction, as we've already done in the past, there will be plenty of board discussions. And if there ever is a transaction that is approved in concept by the committee, it will be brought to the board as an open session item so that not just the board, but also the public can comment upon it.
Okay. But what about rules and regulations, establishing rules and regulations? Is this something that's just between the general manager and...
I think we'd have to look into that, Director Peters.
Yeah.
Take your
when I was bringing
note
it up, when
down.
the gavel went down and I wasn't allowed to talk about it. And so I just want to remind them that we're developing rules and regulations. And I don't know if this is going to be like the at-will contract.
No,
So the existing surplus water customers are covered in our rules and regulations already. They're in there. I think in this particular instance, it references more or less the avenue we're discussing with Dustin in closed session.
Oh.
And the, not necessarily rules and regulations, but maybe agreements and
Terms.
Terms, and terms.
Oh, but they call it rules and regulations in our resolution. All right, I just wondered, because I thought the rules and regulations is... Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Director Peters. Finally, moving forward, we'd like to, whoops. I do have announced my candidacy for reelection and filed for reelection. And if there's nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.